Okay, we're live.
Slides back in.
Good. All right. Members of council, members of the public, welcome. I hereby call the meeting of council committees for the month of September, 2020 to order. Give me just a second here. Mr. Harris, can you call the roll of members, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Arroyo.
Here.
Ms. Beque.
Here.
Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Here.
Mr. Soto.
I'm sorry, here.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Here. Thank you. Approval of the August 3rd, 2020 committee meeting minutes.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council comments? Hearing none. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Beque.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Aye. Thank you all. This evening, we have a number of additional items and deletions from the agenda as previously documented. I would sincerely appreciate it if a member of council would make a motion to amend tonight's agenda as follows. Under the meeting of Personnel Committee, to add the nomination of Sue Lackman for reappointment to the Board of Health, and resolution number 46, 2020, a resolution recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month. Under the Community Planning Committee, removing the update on the Welcoming City Initiative. Under the Public Works Committee, removing the administration resolution adopting the Urban Tree Management Plan and adding the administration resolution amending the winter services agreement with PennDOT.
Make a motion to amend the agenda.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Council comments. All right. I will note on the additions, since they are pertinent to the motion. Sue Lackman currently serves on the Board of Health and was appointed to fill an incomplete term. Has the support of the city's health officer, Kim Whistler, and does wish to be reappointed and will be present tonight. And the other is, as I mentioned, went ahead and had Bernie add a resolution for Hispanic Heritage Month. And so those members of council that feel that that's relevant to them, I would hope that you would have the opportunity to communicate with Bernie between this and the council meeting where we take it up, if you'd like to add any changes or include any items specifically. But with that comment, Mr. Harris, if you would call the roll on the motion or the vote.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Beque.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Aye. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being so accommodating. With that, we move to the Personnel Committee of Council. Councilor Diaz.
Yes, Mr. President. We have nomination of Kenny Weeks for appointment to the Planning Commission. Is he available to speak, or will he be coming to full council?
He's just been added, I believe.
Okay.
I am here.
Hi, Kenny.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Would you like to give us an enlightenment about the planning commission and what you can bring forward?
If you'd like, yeah, not a problem. Simply put, I just plan on bringing a discerning eye, a willing attitude. Just want to be a part of the opportunity to be able to, like I said, just bring a discerning eye and grassroots attitude to the Planning Commission. After speaking with Douglas Smith, I did share that I don't have a lot of experience in this area. However, just a willingness to, as I said, bring a discerning mindset, discerning attitude, having a pulse to the area in which I live. I believe that will be critical into being an effective part of the team. So with that being said, it's just really that simple, really. I'm a pretty straightforward person. What you see is what you get. And that's about what it is. Thanks for putting me on the spot like that.
Is there any questions from the committee?
No questions from me, Councilor Diaz. I just wanted to thank Reverend Weeks for your willingness to do this. And I know you mentioned you don't have any, specific, experience or training, but I think your willingness to serve and the fact that you are a resident of the city is really all that's needed in this case. And so we appreciate you stepping up to do this. And it is an important authority to serve on. So we appreciate you and your time for being here this evening.
Sure, no problem, no problem.
Yes.
Can I
Oh,
add?
please.
Thank you. Let me add, I believe that you'll be a valuable asset to the Planning Commission. You'll be surprised how much you know.
I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Mr. Weeks, first of all, thank you for being willing to serve, especially as we seek to increase, all kinds of experience on the city's boards, commissions, and authorities. I've known you for a number of years, Mr. Weeks, and I think I would really push back on the notion that just because you're not a planner, you don't have the necessary experience. I think you're going to bring all kinds of experience to what we do here. And Lord knows we've been working for a long time to fill the Planning Commission seat in Region 3 where you are. So that's, that should also be noted. So really, thank you. I think we're all in agreement that we appreciate your willingness to step up.
I appreciate that. Like I was telling Doug, I'm not intimidated by, any of the technical stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just coming with a fresh set of eyes, and I believe I can be a help to the commission.
Any other questions from any other city council members? Any questions from the public? Then I make a motion to move this to our next city council meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Weeks.
Thank you so much.
Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
You do the same. You do the same. Thank you.
The next nomination is DJ Ramsey to the reappointment of the Sign Commission.
Ms. Diaz, if I can, I'm sorry for interrupting, but, and I know it's just procedural, but if you can have a vote of the committee.
Oh, I thought somebody made a, I
We
made
have
a
a motion in a second, but it needs to be approved.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ah,
Thank you.
it's been a while.
Those little technicalities.
Yeah, I know. So yes, then we'll move forward then with the motion for the nomination of DJ Ramsey for reappointment of the Sign Commissions. Do we want to have him speak, or should we move forward to the next committee?
Looks like he is present in the meeting. I know that this is a reappointment. Mr. Ramsey, is there anything that you wanted to add in terms of serving on this commission?
Just that, thank you for the opportunity to continue serving in this very niche service to the city, but it's one that I thoroughly enjoy.
Thank you, DJ.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move this over then to next week, and we'll move forward then to Sue Leckman's nomination for reappointment to the Board of Health Finance Committee. Is she here to speak?
So, yes.
Okay.
Okay, now can you hear me?
We can,
Good.
Sue. Thank you.
Okay, good. I was having reception problems before. Are you waiting for me?
Go ahead, Sue. Yes, we're waiting if you wanted to make any comments or to address the city council.
No, I'm thrilled like everybody else to be able to continue my term, filling it up, and enjoy working with Kim and the rest of the Board of Health people to identify and provide resources for people in the city.
Great. Any questions from the committee?
I do have one question, Councilwoman. How long have you served on the committee, Sue? And sorry, I don't have this information in front of me.
I'm not sitting at my office, so I can't look at the date of the certificate. 6 months, maybe.
Okay. Well, that's great. I really appreciate all the work that you've done. I think the Board of Health is one area that I particularly am passionate about. I saw that you do prevention work and health promotion. So I think that's definitely one of the initiatives and perspective that I appreciate that you bring to the table, that we have growth and a lot to learn from you. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you. I love doing it. I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm happy to be able to share it with other people and help connect the dots.
Thank you.
Absolutely. This is obviously a really critical time for the Board of Health, and the fact that you've only been serving for 6 months. And during that time, obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So nothing like a trial by fire. But if you have the endorsement of Kim Whistler to continue to serve, we really appreciate you being in this position, Sue. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Any questions from other council members? From the public? Okay, so I make a motion then, and then to move this also forward to anyone seconding that?
I would second.
And we'll move it then to next city council, and that will be next week, I gather. All in favor?
Aye.
And at this point, that's all I have, Mr. President.
Councilor Diaz, you also have, sorry, because you don't have it in front of you. That's not your fault. You also have Resolution 46, number 2020, honoring Hispanic Heritage Month.
That's right. I totally forgot about that. And I do not have that in front of me. Hold on a second.
So, Councilor Diaz, that was a last minute addition. Just we do it every year, and I noticed it hadn't been added to the agenda. Councilor Diaz, Councilor Soto, Councilor Garcia Molina, and Councilor Arroyo, like I mentioned earlier, you'll have the opportunity to communicate with Mr. Harris for what specifically is included in that, and then we'll vote on the amended final text when it shows up at a meeting of full council. Just wanted to make sure we got it on the committee agenda. Yeah, so nobody was blindsided. So that's the context for where we are.
Okay. And is that 46, 2020?
That is 46, 2020.
Mr. President, if I may, I simply updated last year's resolution with the current year dates, and that is slated for the agenda on the 22nd.
Oh, so it's not, okay. So I guess we'll move that forward till the 22nd of September. Motion? Let me see, where is that at? I can't see.
Excuse me, may I clarify the date that we're going to move that forward to again? Because Hispanic Heritage Month begins on the 15th. So it
Is
would,
there a reason why we can't do it on the 8th meeting?
I was just asked to put it on the agenda for the 22nd.
I think the only argument to do it on the 22nd as opposed to the 8th, even if it's not recognized beforehand, is just that the 8th is going to be kind of
a large full meeting. I understand. Thank you. I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to recognize it in its fullest. So the 22nd is fine. I just thank you for clarifying.
Council President, also Milsey had forwarded that to the 4 of us council members. And so we have had a little bit of opportunity to look at it, and we'll continue to look at it for the 22nd.
Okay.
So, did you make a motion, Councilor Diaz?
Yes, I did.
Second.
All right, so I guess we're all in favor for us to move this then to the 22nd of September to recognize the National Hispanic Heritage Month. And I guess we won't be able partying, at Bin Park because we're in this wonderful pandemic, but I guess we can bring the maracas and use those. All in favor?
Aye.
You better bring them for the next meeting. For the 22nd.
You
That's
bring
all
the
I have.
maracas, Councilor Diaz. I'll bring the guido.
All right.
This is amazing. Oh
Can't
man,
have one without the other.
when was the last year we had, I don't know why this makes me think of this. On the subject of bringing the maracas, was it a year, 2 years ago? There was an article in the paper about somebody being cited for selling coquito from their home.
Yes, it was a young woman. In fact, I saw that and just recently. It was in LMP. She was arrested. She's 22 years old. And I'm like, on Craigslist, like, really? Oh, well.
So I'm sorry. Thank you, Councilor Diaz. We now move to the Finance Committee. Councilor Bakay.
Thank you so much. The Finance Committee meeting is now called to order. This evening, we just have one item on the agenda, but it is a presentation. It is the 2021 budget request presentation from Lancaster EMS, and I believe Bob May is on the attendees list, and I believe he will be presenting this evening. Here we go. All right, Mr. May, you can unmute yourself. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we
Okay.
can. Thank you so much.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for this opportunity. I understand I have 10 minutes and I will hold it to that with 5 minutes of questions.
Appreciate
So-
that. Thank you.
Everybody has a copy of the slide presentation? If I could
Yes.
refer you to slide number 2. I won't share my screen if you have it in front of you. I'm going to run through this pretty quick. Slide number 2. For the benefit of some of the newer council members, I think it's important that I share the history of Lancaster EMS. We were formed in 1996.
Mr. May.
Yes.
Mr. May, I'm sorry. And I imagine actually this is what Chris is going to say. Council President Smith-Waddell here. Mr. Harris or Mr. May, I do think for the benefit of the public and the press, we should have the presentation shared to the screen if either of you are capable of doing that, just because it is going live to the public. Forgive the interruption.
No, that certainly makes sense, President. Can you do that, Bernie?
I can do it, Bob, if you like.
I think it'll go easier if you do it. I'd appreciate that.
Ms. Strazo, can we add Chris to the meeting just to check in with what he needs? Chris is the LNP correspondent covering the meeting. So, Chris, what do you need?
That was exactly it. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, I'll try to bring that up.
We're making you pivot on your feet here, Bernie, and it's much appreciated.
Yeah. Right.
Bernie, if you're having some challenges, I can certainly
I
try
got it.
mine.
There we go.
Okay, great. All right, slide number 2, please.
Come on. There we go. Sorry. There we go.
Okay, great. Thank you. Like I said, I won't spend a lot of time going over each point on these slides, but I do want to hit a couple key points. So we were formed in 1996 when St. Joseph's Hospital and Community Hospital of Lancaster combined their advanced life support services to form Lancaster EMS. At the time, St. Joseph's was losing about $800,000 annually, and Community was losing $700,000. Since that initial consolidation, 5 other ambulance services joined Lancaster EMS, and at the end of each one of these bullets where it says ops, that's the year that these organizations were incorporated. Interesting footnote, St. Joe's of Lancaster had the 4th advanced life support unit on the road in the country. So the pride runs pretty deep in Lancaster County for EMS. All right, Bernie, second or third slide, please. All right, just some facts about us. We are not hospital owned, and we do receive no hospital support, and we haven't for many years. We do have a board of directors of 13. It's a combination of hospital and community representatives. And Mr. Hopkins from City of Lancaster serves on our board. He has for a couple of years. We serve 21 municipalities. And I think we went ahead one slide, Bernie. Go back to number 3, please.
Oh.
21 municipalities we serve out of 11 stations, and 39,000 calls last year, with over half in the city of Lancaster. We are nationally accredited. We have been for a number of years. This is something that we don't have to do, but we think it's important. And national accreditation is actually the gold standard, and it is above state licensure. Okay, Bernie, next slide, please. So on this slide, it outlines our revenue sources. We are fee for service. That's where the majority of our income comes from. We show the top 4 expenses, with wages being number 1. And I want to spend a little bit of time, a few seconds on the write-off. So we write off bad debt, and we write off contractual allowance. Contractual allowance is the difference between what we bill and what we receive from Medicare and Medicaid. So for example, if we bill $100 to Medicare and they pay us $60, we write off $40 to contractual allowance. So down to the graph, the payer mix, this is specific to the city of Lancaster. You can see that we have about 76% of all of our patients in the city is, the payer is an entitlement, either Medicaid or Medicare. We write off just over 66%. And then what we collect is 34 cents on the dollar. And again, this is specific to the city of Lancaster. Okay, Bernie, next slide, please. Just a quick overview as far as the call volume history since 1997. Last year, we finished just over 10,000 calls. These are 911s in the city of Lancaster. And out of the 10,000 plus calls, just over half were advanced level care, what we call ALS, and the remaining were basic level care. We average almost 30 calls a day in the city, and the age distribution, the majority, well, not the majority, but the most out of these segments is a 65 to 74 range. All right, Bernie, next slide, please. This is the historical support from the city of Lancaster since 2003. Our request for 2021 is the same as it has been for the last 4 years. Next slide, Bernie. This is a per person based on census, what is provided to us in support. And we're just about $2.50 per person per year for EMS support. All right, next slide, Bernie. So you may have heard the term EMS is in crisis. That is a common catchphrase, and it has been for a couple of years across the country. It's not only in crisis, it is in collapse. These are the contributing factors. The first three bullets, what we call the 3 R's, reimbursement, recruitment, and retention. Under reimbursement, the model is not sustainable, and Mayor Sirachi and I have had a number of conversations regarding what we can do to try to address this. The cost to provide the service is not covered by many other reimbursement models, Medicaid, Medicare in particular. And you can see that our at-ready cost is just under $400. So every time we open up the bay door, pull that truck out, it costs us $400. And to give you an example, Medicaid reimburses us $180. So for every Medicaid call that we run, advanced and basic, and every basic Medicare call that we run, we do not cover our cost. And that's over half of the calls. Well, it's close to 70% in the city. Recruitment, oh, I'm sorry, let me back up a second. Another challenge is that we have patients that keep their checks. This is mainly on the commercial side. So we don't participate with many of the payers. Most EMS services do not participate because the reimbursement rates that they are willing to provide to us is in many cases less than Medicare. So we do not participate, meaning that the patient will get the check. And in 40% of our patients receiving checks, they do turn those checks over to us. We have to chase those down. And that's a statewide challenge. Recruitment. We have had quite the challenge over the last 5 years, and it's getting worse by the year with getting young people, EMTs, paramedics into the healthcare system to help run our ambulance services across the state and across the country. Putting a lot of effort in to try to understand what's going on, but we frankly don't have the interest. And the pandemic hasn't helped. We've lost a few staff members because of the pandemic. We have had suspension of paramedic and EMT programs, which has hurt the industry as well. So don't have the answer. We are working to try to figure that out. But what we can say is that the low wages that aren't comparable to fire and police have certainly contributed to many not choosing the EMS industry as a career. When we do get our employees, we keep them for just a few years and they go off and they do other things. Most time they stay in healthcare, physician assistants, LPNs, RNs, and so forth. It's been a difficult challenge to retain these individuals. And then when we go out, and I go out personally, and my colleagues go out, and we ask our municipalities for support, we do have that it's a county problem. The county says it's a local problem, and we struggled with that. I will compliment the mayor. She has been very supportive. She has facilitated a committee that was formed about 1.5 years ago that has brought a number of people together, leaders within the community and within the county, to try to solve some of these difficult challenges. Okay, and the last slide, Bernie, number 10, please. So as we look to the future, we have to have engagement from all municipalities that EMS serves. And we have both ends of the extreme. We have those that are absolutely disengaged, that won't even accept me to come to do a presentation. And then we have those that will check in and stay in regular contact with me as far as how things are going. It's important. The engagement is absolutely important. To be acknowledged, to be as important as police and fire is also important. We certainly need financial support from all the municipalities, not just some, and we need support that is commensurate with the amount of services that we provide for that municipality. There has been discussions among my colleagues as far as an EMS tax. I know there's some municipalities across the Commonwealth, and there's counties across the country that have implemented an EMS tax. That I think is important to put that on the table for discussion. EMS, we must continue to address low wages. $13, $14 an hour for a new hire isn't going to sustain a family of 4. That's for EMTs. Paramedics is higher, usually in the $20, $21 range. We are not unionized here at Lancaster EMS. We don't have pensions. We do have 401ks with a match, but it's not enough to keep our employees for a full career, a lifetime career. We have to continue to partner with our neighboring services. We have done a good job with that, but there's still more work to be done. And of course, working with our local lawmakers to try to address some of the reimbursement issues. And that's been an uphill battle, and I do not see any light at the end of that tunnel. That has been a very difficult process, and I'm not hopeful. If we don't do anything, I can tell you that some hard changes or some hard decisions have to be made. Service levels, we have to consider reducing. Municipalities may be forced to fully fund EMS themselves, and EMS certainly is a big component of adequate public health in every community. So I know I went through this pretty quick. Hopefully I stayed within my 10 minutes, but I do certainly want to entertain any questions that any of the council members may have.
Mr. May, thank you very much. I'll kick it off, and then I will open it up to the rest of the committee. I wonder if you could just briefly, and some of your materials that was sent us ahead of time address this, but just address the way that the pandemic has affected EMS services. It looked like your actual call volumes were down, but costs were up. Is that correct? Could you sort of expand on that a little bit?
Sure, great question. Our call volume was down about 25% starting mid-March. It has rebounded to not quite pre-pandemic levels, but we're probably down 5-6%. Even when call volume is down, we still have the same expenses. We have at-ready costs. We have to keep all 11 of our stations at the ready. We have to pay the personnel even if they're not running calls. So we have the expenses, but if they're not running calls, we have no income. So we took a big hit. All EMS across the country has taken a big hit because of call volume being down. And a interesting side note to this, people are afraid to call 911. They don't want to go to the hospital. And we have seen a very scary increase in acuity. In other words, we're seeing sicker patients, and we're seeing patients that are in cardiac arrest that could have been prevented, or patients that are having strokes that are debilitating that weren't caught early because people were afraid to go to the hospital. So I think we're making some headway to get people comfortable calling 911 again. But yes, call volume is imperative to maintain a steady revenue stream, and without call volume, we don't have revenue.
Thank you very much, Mr. May. Any other questions for Mr. May from the rest of the committee? Looks like you're muted, Counselor Diaz.
There we go. Mr. May, can you tell me if you got phone calls, how many were related to COVID-19 versus any other diagnosis or symptom?
The 911 calls?
Yes.
So during the peak of the pandemic, from a call volume standpoint, we were being dispatched to known COVID patients about 20 times each day. And I'd say you can add another 5 to 10 patients that were suspicious. The majority of our patients that were COVID positive or COVID suspicious were at the nursing homes. We have a lot of nursing homes in our 911 response area.
Okay. Did anyone, I'm trying to frame this. Do you feel that the lack of health insurance could have caused the drop in the phone calls?
Do I think that people were not calling 911 because they did not have adequate or no health insurance?
Correct.
No, my gut tells me no, and the reason it tells me no is because that has never been a barrier in the past. I think anybody that is reluctant to call 911 over the last 6 months has been related specifically to the pandemic. I mean, we have patients that have told us this. They don't want to go to the hospital. And we certainly don't want to use scare tactics to get people to go to the hospital, but we do want to be factual and straightforward with them. And this issue is not just with Lancaster EMS. We've had many conference calls across the state to try to educate people that they still need to call 911. So insurance has never been a barrier in the past. So I don't think it was a barrier during during this pandemic.
Okay. In reference to the amount of cardiac and strokes, I know that they had dropped, and I'm going to guess it had to do with the fact that there was a pandemic and they were concerns, but I've noticed also that they have been increasing. Have you seen any increase the last month?
The last month, I've seen a decrease in cardiac arrest during the April through June months. We have had about a 20% increase in cardiac arrest.
Okay.
So they're starting to come down, and we contribute that to people being more proactive with their health. And if they have chest pain, they are calling 911 versus that chest pain progressing to unconsciousness and eventually cardiac arrest. So we are seeing some favorable trending with people starting to address their issues by not delaying care.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
I was just going to add overdoses. We did see overdoses start to increase again since May. We saw some favorable declines toward the end of 2019, but we are starting to see them those numbers go back up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. May, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to tell you, that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. May, in regards to the funding that you receive from the other municipalities that you serve, I didn't see sort of an itemized list here, and I don't necessarily need one, but you said that in other cases, other municipalities aren't engaged with you at all. Did you mean from a funding perspective as well? Are there some of those 21 municipalities that aren't giving you funding on a yearly basis?
That is correct. We have about half that do fund at various levels. I can send to Mayor Sirachi a list of our 2019 and 2018 contributors by municipality. I can share that, and she can share it with the council.
That would be cool. Thank you.
I think that would be important for you to see. You can see who gives and how much each gives, and who doesn't give or support, I should say.
Terrific.
I will do that tomorrow.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Any questions from other members of council?
If I may, Councilor Bakay.
Please.
Mr. May, thank you for the presentation. And I might have missed this. I'm curious as to the job qualifications that are required. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. We employ, from a clinical perspective, we employ 3 different levels. ENTs, which is a certification that is acquired with about 150 hours. And most EMTs can achieve that within 3 months part-time. The next level up is a paramedic. It's a higher trained individual that takes about a year, and that's about 1,200 hours. And again, that's typically part-time. And then the level above that, which is a pre-hospital registered nurse, and you have to be an RN, and then you have to achieve the credentialing for pre-hospital, and that is an RN is about 3 years. Now, you don't need RNs to run an ambulance service. The RNs cannot practice beyond the scope of practice for a paramedic. So the majority of our personnel are EMTs and paramedics.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
And Bob, I found that document, and so I forwarded it to Bernie Harris to share with the counselors and to also have that on record himself for the 2019 contributions, as well as requests for services, as well as the subscriptions. You had sent those 3 documents back in January.
Wonderful. Thank you for doing that, Mayor.
Yep.
Mr. McKay, may I?
Please.
Mr. May, out of the 21 municipalities that you service, percentage-wise, where do your most of your calls originate of the 21 municipalities?
55% of our total calls are in the city of Lancaster.
So the other 45%, how are they distributed among the other municipalities?
I can share that as well. That's easily obtained.
Could you please? I'd appreciate
Sure,
it.
absolutely. Be happy to do that. And
Thank
Mayor
you.
Sirachi, I will send that to you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. And that's all I have, Mr. McKay.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great questions.
Anyone else?
I do have a question, Councilor Bakay.
Please.
Mr. May, I really appreciate all the work that you and your team are doing, especially right now during the time of COVID. I recognize even the hardship that you have with recruitment and right now the loss that you also incurred. I wanted to acknowledge one of the asks and the must that you had in your presentation around the EMS tax. And I was wondering if you could enlighten me a little bit about your experience with an EMS tax or how that's worked in other municipalities, or if you could just speak a little bit more to that for me.
Sure, I'd be happy to, sir. I don't have any personal experience with operating an EMS agency that has received EMS tax revenue. But one of the models that myself and a couple other colleagues have discussed over the years is a $10, $15 per parcel per year. And then with that, we would look at stopping to send out the memberships or the subscriptions. When everybody contributes, it's you can bring down the amount per person. So I've talked to a couple other municipalities. Mardik Township was one. There is interest there. There's been no action on it, but we are looking at a modest fee of $10, $12 per parcel within the municipality. Like I said, there's been no action on that, and I don't know if that will be achieved or not. But there are models across the Commonwealth where they do implement an EMS tax. And I believe that most would not have any problem paying $10 or $15 per household to have guaranteed EMS and have that EMS within less than 10 minutes, 90% of the time. And that's our gold standard, by the way. And I didn't talk about this because of time, but we have a response time standard for advanced life support. And the city of Lancaster can enjoy almost a 90% response rate of less than 10 minutes for advanced life support. We monitor that. I share that with the mayor. And that is something that we take a lot of pride in as far as our response times, especially for urban areas.
No, I really appreciate you even giving me just this insight into that. And I'm sure we'll have follow-up conversations around that. And just thank you for all the work that you're doing. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you acknowledging.
Thank you very much, Mr. May. Any other questions before we wrap up? Once, going twice. Okay. Thank you, Mr. May. I appreciate you being here this evening. And if you have any questions, we will make sure that we get in contact with you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. And with that, Mr. President, that concludes the Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Bakay. We then move to the Community Planning Committee. Councilor Craig. Councilor Craig, you're muted.
Thank you so much. I was just rambling on. But anyway, thank you so much. Community planning is now come to order. We have several items on the agenda. One, I have questioned, but Administration Bill number 10, 2020, allowing for the appointments of alternate members to the Lancaster City Planning Commission.
Yeah, I believe, yeah, Mr. Smith.
Okay. Is he with us?
He's just been added.
Great.
Hi, good evening, councilors.
Hi,
good to see you all tonight. I'm happy to provide a little bit more information on this administration bill. And just for your reference, I also did provide a memo in case you want to also reference that later. But quickly, our current ordinance that empowers the Planning Commission to do its work by the state municipalities planning code currently says that we can only have 9 Planning Commission members. The MPC was amended about 5 years ago to permit the addition of 3 alternate members. Alternate members are also used in the zoning hearing board in case we are short on members for a meeting. The Planning Commission has generally had very dedicated membership, but especially in the midst of COVID, it's been a little bit more challenging to get a quorum at our meetings. In addition to that, we've had a membership of 9 what I would call citizen members of the Planning Commission that provide very valuable feedback to us in terms of how these developments impact their neighborhoods and providing more of a resident perspective. But the Community Planning and Economic Development Department is interested in expanding some of the expertise on the Planning Commission, allowing for additional members or alternate members that would allow us to appoint at-large members from the community that don't need to be tied to a specific geographic area. And we could include people that have background, say, in engineering or architecture to help fill out our planning commission. The alternate members can interact as any member can in terms of discussion, but when it comes to voting, they have to be appointed by the chair and fill the vacancy that evening of another member. So if we already have our full 9 citizen members, those are the 9 members that would get to vote. If the alternate members are also present, they could provide comments and participate in discussion, but they would not be able to vote. My personal goal is that if there is a member, a regular member that cannot attend a planning commission member, I would ask that that member then contact one of the alternate members and ask them to attend in their place so that we can ensure that we're getting a diversity of perspective in these developments. What I would like to avoid is having a quorum of 3 or 4 members, depending on our numbers. Now that you've appointed Kenny Weeks, we now have a quorum of 4 for a board of 9, according to our bylaws. I don't ideally want 4 members approving plans. I would like to have 7, 8, or 9 or more members. So this amendment helps to address that issue. I thought that we could do this just through bylaws, but after talking to our city solicitor, I was reminded that this is also articulated in our planning commission ordinance and needs to be brought up to be made current with the MPC.
Thank you, Douglas. I don't have any questions at the moment. You've been very thorough in your presentation, so I will open this up to other members of the committee if you have any other questions.
If I may, Councilor Craig?
Absolutely.
Just curious, Mr. Smith, what are the requirements for the 9 members that sit on the Planning Commission?
That's a good question. And in general, so it depends on the seat that they fill. I should say that first. There are 6 positions that have to be filled by residents that correspond to 6 geographic regions of the city. There is a very unique planning region map that was adopted back in the late 70s that we still use. It doesn't necessarily correspond to neighborhoods as you might be familiar with them. The other 3 members also have to be city residents, but they can be at large anywhere. In terms of their expertise, there is really no particular expertise that is required to be a planning commission member. I think that the council and the mayor's office and staff over the years have really tried to strive for a mix of residents that provide some expertise on matters of planning and development. For instance, we have someone in commercial lending on the commission. We have someone in real estate on the commission. Jose Colon, who just resigned as a full member, is employed by Saka Development. And then there are others that are simply residents that care about their communities and are interested in having a say and learning and participating.
Great. Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you. President, Council, I thought you had something you wanted to ask. You're muted.
I am muted. Sorry. Mr. Smith, briefly, do you have you had mentioned concerns about a quorum of, having a quorum of 4 moving planning items ahead. While I think this is good and we should have this, is it worth also considering changing the quorum as set by ordinance to at least a majority of the full body, at least to 5?
Yes, I think that that's a good recommendation and certainly one that I can bring to the Planning Commission. I do track the attendance of Planning Commission members, and I've had to contact a couple recently just to remind them that their attendance had dipped, and there are bylaws that require them to attend a certain number of meetings. So I have seen an uptick in participation since then, and I think that also raising the quorum could help address that. I would prefer to do that in concert with the alternate members, only out of concern that I may have developers show up at a meeting and we might have a full agenda and not have a quorum.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's, it's an and, not an or for me, and that's an item we can address later. But thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Councilor Craig.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, go.
Yeah. Thank you. I think my question was really answered or asked by Council President, but to follow up on that, could you send me or Council the attendance list, Douglas? Because when I hear this conversation of quorum taking place, I think that that's also an opportunity to look at individuals and see necessarily how we can prevent barriers or things happening in people's lives from feeling like this is just one more thing on their plate, and really trying to see if it's just a matter of us finding individuals as well that are able to be both dedicated in their lives and also to the work. So if you could share that attendance list with me, I appreciate that.
Sure, I can certainly do that. Just to clarify, the bylaws evaluate attendance on a calendar year.
Okay.
The attendance sheet that I put together was looking at the last 12-month period. So it kind of overlaps the 2 calendar years. Is that okay with you if I
That's
share
fine.
that? Okay.
Yeah, I just would, I'd want to see, like, as I come to learn who all is serving on boards and committees, kind of what's happening in these patterns that's causing us to need to also make these decisions.
Sure, I can certainly do that. And I will say that the alternate membership is not only to address issues of attendance, but to expand expertise as well. It can be hard in the case of Region 3 and Mr. Weeks, who is very kindly willing to serve. It's a very low density neighborhood. So while the area looks large, we don't have the same kind of pool to pull from in terms of expertise in that neighborhood as we would in the downtown, for instance.
I appreciate that.
I'll follow up with that tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from other members of council? No? Are there any questions from the public? We'll give him a second. Nothing? All right. I'll make a motion that we move this to full council on the 8th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you. I'm going to hang out here for the, some upcoming agenda items.
I was going to suggest that. Thank you so much. The next item that we have on the agenda is the review of the Historical Commission recommendation for demolition and new construction at 329 to 331 East New Street. Is there someone here to present on that? No?
All right, well, Mr. Smith?
I wasn't expecting to present on this, but I'm happy to provide a little bit more detail about what's being proposed here, if that would be helpful.
That's fine. Thank you.
Give me one moment here. I apologize. I wasn't thinking I was going to comment on this, but I'm happy to do so. Okay. So there are 2 parcels, 329 and 331. Both of them are being developed or proposed for development. These parcels front on Grove Lane as well as East New Street. The proposed development is happening on the Grove Lane side, although the addresses are for East New. At 329, there's an existing row home that's there. The back of that lot has a garage, and both the back lot where that garage is and the adjacent empty lot. That's 331, which is completely empty. There's proposed to be construction of a 3-story multifamily dwelling and I believe it's a two unit structure on the adjacent lot. So if you can imagine, you're on Grove Lane, there's one garage that will be knocked down, a building will be erected, and then on the the adjacent lot, there will be an attached building that will also be erected. One is multifamily and the other is a 2-unit. There was zoning approval provided for this back in October. There were a number of items that they needed relief for. And just so you're aware of some of the housing issues wrapped up in this, at 329, there was a use variance that was required for the new 2-family dwelling. And at 331, there was also a use variance that was required for the multifamily dwelling. These housing types were not permitted by right in the R3. So they've been slowly marching towards this development. I believe that they have most of their items in order. If they receive this approval from City Council, then they would be submitting a land development plan to the Planning Commission. I don't have the renderings for these projects in hand, but judging from the agenda this evening, it does look like these were both recommended for approval. Is that right? The demolition and the construction? Okay, that was my recollection. So happy to answer any additional questions.
I don't have any at the moment. Are there any questions from the committee?
No.
I'd just like to, oh, go ahead. Councilor Arroyo.
Sorry. I was just curious about the aesthetic of the property. Has that been decided yet, or is that something that kind of moves forward throughout the process?
The aesthetic was reviewed by the Historical Commission at the last meeting. They approved a design including facade materials. I was able to see the design. I don't have those details at my fingertips, but I'm happy to forward them to you and make sure that you have them. In general, I thought that it was an appealing design. They presented a couple of concepts and asked the Historical Commission for feedback. The one that was chosen had some additional window space and some additional architectural features on it that kind of helped to frame the building and also differentiate the two structures. There are garages on the first floor of both structures that will serve the residents.
And there are schematics included in the attachments that Mr. Harris sent on page 2 that you can take a look at. And I just wanted to add, thank you very much, Douglas, for jumping in here. I just want to add that this is an important effort to add more housing units in an already dense environment. And I appreciate that this has taken some time to get through the process. As Douglas mentioned, this came before the Zoning Hearing Board last October. But these kinds of smaller infill residential units are an important consideration as we continue to evaluate land use in the city in our very dense urban neighborhoods. So just wanted to add my 2 cents.
That was important.
Ms. Brazo, is Mr. Chad Steller in any way related to this project? Is that a?
No.
Yes.
I got a no and a yes.
Yeah.
So Chad Steller is the name that was on the Zoning Hearing Board appeals for both of these properties.
And the key properties. Sorry, I misspoke.
Yes, Mr. Steller has his hand raised is the reason that I asked.
Well, we're going to open it up to other members of council if they don't have anything.
Yes, Mr. Craig, I have a question.
Go ahead, Pete.
And this is, I guess, addressed to the mayor and to Mr. Smith. How much community, the neighbors of the neighborhoods are either in favor or against? Has there been much feedback from them with their concerns about this project or not?
Well, what I can tell you, Mr. Soto, is that in the process of going through the zoning hearing board, all of the neighbors were notified of the zoning changes that were being sought. And the opportunity for neighbors to present any concerns was through the zoning hearing process. And I can tell, I don't have specifics, and perhaps the owner, developer of this project can speak to this, but I didn't hear any concerns following the zoning hearing board. And I myself spoke to several neighbors on East New Street about this, and they were amenable to the additional housing units being added to the neighborhood.
Oh, that's good. I'm just glad that there was feedback, and there's nothing that's going to show up at the last minute with a big objection to this project. That's all. Thank you.
Other members of council? No? Then the public, the gentleman that had his hand up waiting, Amber, I'd like to hear from him.
He is no longer in the Zoom, so I'm not sure if he left or if he got booted out for technical problems, but he is no longer there.
Okay, maybe he'll come back later. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion to move this to full council on the 8th.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The third item on the agenda, I'm glad you stuck around, Douglas. Administration Resolution 43, revised sewage planning module for 4 to 18 West King Street project.
Thank you, Councilor. So this project was actually before you. Gosh, it was only about a month and a half ago or so. You had previously approved a sewer planning module. This is for the 4 parcels that used to be owned by L&P, basically between the press room and Penn Square, that are being developed by Zamias. They already have an approved land development plan, and their programming for the building has changed a bit because they've been going through this in the midst of COVID and have been reevaluating markets. When I presented to you about a month and a half ago, I think it was the beginning of July, I did present you the changed program, which included 45 residential units at that time, and office space and retaining the commercial on the first floor. So you actually were aware of the new program change, but the sewer planning module, as it turns out, was not fully updated to reflect the water and sewer use for those uses. So the design firm that was working on this made new water and sewer capacity requests to the city, updated the sewer planning module and sent it back to us to be revised and sent back to DEP. So this is even more perfunctory than these usually are.
Douglas, the DEP approved this?
So I don't know at what stage this was with DEP. Sorry, we actually don't always get those approval notices, or at least I don't personally. Brian Harner, our sewer engineer, might. But once we send them out to DEP, if the municipality supports the sewer planning and we have capacity and it conforms to our land use goals, then typically the DEP doesn't overturn anything. They're making sure that the municipality has properly reviewed it and approving it. And in this case, because there are no sewer planning facilities that are being constructed, like a small wastewater treatment facility or anything like that, this would be a fairly minor project for the DEP.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? No? Any other questions from members of council? Any questions on this from the public? Hearing none, motion, we move this to full council on the 8th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Or somebody needs a second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, and then we'll say aye.
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 There you go. Thank you. The last item on the agenda is Administration Resolution 44, a sewage planning module for the 548 New Holland Avenue project. Douglas, you're on.
All right, thank you, Councilor Craig. So 548 New Holland Avenue is the location of the Drums Etc. business, which has been there for, I think, a couple decades now. A large portion of their business is through their online site. So they haven't been doing a lot of business over the years in recent, and Rick Hamilton is looking to actually downsize his storefront. He's moving it to, I believe, Mannheim somewhere, and they're looking to redevelop this property into a mixed-use residential commercial project. They have submitted a land development plan to the city, and it is under review currently. They just received approval from the Traffic Commission today for their design. They're pretty much through the stormwater design, and everything seems to be lining up. I think that this is a really great, another great residential infill project. It will add 22 units to the site, and it's also received Historical Commission approval and a certificate of appropriateness from you all. So they're adding the addition to vertical addition and extending the back of the building. So it will still maintain its streetscape frontage and the commercial unit at the front of the building while adding the residential to the top and the back of it. They're meeting all of the requirements otherwise so far, and they're applying for a sewer planning module because of the increased sewer flows once again. So we've provided them a water capacity and sewer capacity letter, and everything seems to be in order on this front.
Thank you, Douglas. Are there any questions from the committee? No? Any questions from other members of council? No?
Yes, Councilor Craig, I do have one question for Douglas. How is parking going to be managed on this property?
Councilor, it's a good question. So they are actually providing all of the needed parking on site. They are slightly redesigning the lot, but much to their credit, they're actually reducing their impervious area pretty significantly. And they are using an unusual but progressive and a system of trees to actually manage the stormwater on site. So the perimeter of the entire lot will be planted densely with trees to help capture the stormwater of the existing impervious that is remaining there. But otherwise, they're able to meet all of their parking needs on site. As you know, there's no parking on New Holland Ave itself. So anyone who's going to be using the commercial unit will be pulling in and using the spaces near the front of the building.
Thank you, Douglas.
Sure.
Are there any questions? Any other questions? Did I address the public? Okay. I'll make a motion that we move this to full council on the 8th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And that concludes community planning.
Thank you for your time, councilors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you, Councilor Craig. That brings us to the Public Works Committee of Council. Councilor Soto.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to bring the Committee for Public Works together. This evening, we have one resolution, which was added this evening, Administration Resolution number 45, 2020, amending the winter service agreement with PennDOT. And I believe this references to an amendment that has to be added. Who's going to be speaking to this? Mr. Campbell, good, he's here.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Hi, how are you folks?
Good.
Good.
So this, in fact, is more of an administrative matter than anything else. On an annual basis, there are a number of state roads that the city is asked to plow for snow plowing, and we get a reimbursement for that. So what is required is an amendment to the existing document. The resolution itself is a resolution approving a winter traffic services supplemental agreement between the City of Lancaster and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, allowing for the mayor to be able to sign such an agreement. There is an attachment A, which lists the particular pieces of particular streets and the indicated reimbursement, which totals a little bit more than $84,000.
And I'm sorry, the $84,000 will be for
us to be able to plow streets that ordinarily are the state's responsibility, and that the state would reimburse us for that service.
Okay. Are there any questions from the committee? Are there any questions from the rest of City Council?
I have a question, Councilor Soto.
Please, Councilor.
Is this a resolution, Bernie, or Council President, that can be forwarded to us? And it was added today, but just so we can have the documentation for it.
Yes, oops, pardon me, just a second. Yes, you will, you'll have everything you need ahead of the council meeting and in fairly short order. It's in the Public Works Department, and we should have it soon, but in plenty of time for you to read before you vote on it.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilor.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions from the council? Is there anyone in the public that wishes to comment on this resolution at this time? Give it a couple seconds here. Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to move Resolution 45, 2020 to full council on the 8th. I'm sorry, did I hear a second?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Council President, that concludes Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Councilor Soto. Ms. Strazo, it appears that Mr. Harris is in the attendees and not one as a panelist. Can we re-add him?
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
There he is.
Hey there, Mr. Harris.
Hey there.
That brings us to the Economic Development Committee. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll call to order the Economic Development Committee. Today we have one item on the agenda, Council Resolution 42, 2020, supporting the creation of a national infrastructure bank. Councilor Diaz, would you like to speak to this, or do we have someone that will speak to this resolution?
Yes, we have two. We have Stuart Rosenbach. I think he is on the line, and also Mr. Moody.
Could those persons who are here to, yep, love it. Those persons who are here to, yeah, please raise your hands to be added to the meeting.
There are also, there are two phone-in callers. If one of the phone-in callers is supposed to be in, please hit *9. There we go.
There you go.
I see. Yep, they're both raising their hand.
There we go. Perfect.
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Is that Stuart?
Hi, Stu Rosenblatt. Hi, there may also be Alfeka. Are you on? There's another lady, Alfeka Mutardi, who we have to unmute.
Yes, I am unmuted now.
Okay, and is Laura there? Laura Quick?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, there are 3 of us. Maybe 4. Is Jean on? No. Okay, well, 3's pretty good. What should we do?
Yes, if you would like to present on the resolution that's before council regarding the creation of the Municipal Infrastructure Bank.
Sure. Okay, there'll be 3 of us speaking. I'll go first, then Alfecca, then Laura. And I'll just take a couple of minutes, turn it over to the other 2 ladies. We work with a coalition for a national infrastructure bank, and we have a bill in the U.S. Congress calling for a $4 trillion infrastructure bank modeled on 4 previous United States banks, all of which were highly successful. The last was Franklin Roosevelt's and built a lot of the infrastructure and many of the World War II projects, built the Pennsylvania Turnpike, among many other things. And this infrastructure will require no new federal appropriations. Alfecca will go into that. And it's gaining a lot of support. It would put 25 million people back to work. It would be a massive boost to the tax base. And there are all sorts of provisions in there, you know, in terms of repayment. We want to put 25 million folks back to work at very high wages, Davis-Bacon at a minimum. There is a resolution in the Pennsylvania House with over 40 bipartisan sponsors in support, a resolution in the Pennsylvania Senate, a resolution passed the Allegheny County Council a couple of weeks ago, Northampton County Council, Allentown City Council, and Laura will go into a resolution that passed the state Democratic Convention. So it has a lot of support. I would like to turn over my time now to Alfecca Mutardi, who will briefly go through the bank, and then Laura will go through the campaign here in Pennsylvania.
Thank you very
much. And I would like to thank Ms. Diaz, by the way, for introducing this resolution, which was really great. Thank you.
Great. So my name is Alfecca Mutardi, and I'm a macroeconomist with the Coalition for a National Infrastructure Bank. And what this bank does, what this legislation does, is a House legislation introduced, HR 6422, which would, of course, need passage by the Senate and approval by the entire administration. But the idea is to create a standalone bank to lend $4 trillion to fix all of America's infrastructure. And we've costed that out by looking to the American Society of Civil Engineers, who have these databases on everything that needs fixing in the United States, from roads, bridges, water infrastructure projects, schools. And then we add on some other things that are not in their estimates, like broadband everywhere, high-speed rail. This would cover the high-speed rail line that goes across Pennsylvania, east to west, and then along the edge, north to south, and large water projects too. So the idea is to have a central bank to lend for all of these things, but the people who would really be in charge of the infrastructure projects would be your local planning commissions, who could bring projects forward to the bank with proposals for financing for the projects. So it would be in your hands as to which projects and the layout of how they would work. This bank will not do silo lending like the federal government does with a road project here or a water project there. What the bank is actually seeking to attract is bundled projects to do refurbishment, inner-city refurbishment, to support rural areas, and to build the infrastructure only once, so that when we tear up the road and fix the bridge, we can put the broadband lines underneath and the water lines underneath, replace all of the, this would cover all of the piping that carries water in Pennsylvania to get all the lead out of the water into the schools, into the houses, and everything all at one time. So the idea is to fix all of the infrastructure in every single state to have sufficient funds to do it. And by the by, we will need to hire about 25 million folks and train them and pay them Davis-Bacon wages with full benefits to do this work. So that the share for Pennsylvania would be something like $190 billion, I think, out of the $4 trillion. It would hire hundreds of thousands of workers in your state. It will provide training. And then the infrastructure project work all across the United States will demand the kind of products that Pennsylvania supplies, like steel products from the steel companies, like transit cars or wind turbines, or anything that this infrastructure requires. So we think that this will be a holistic plan. The idea is that we've configured the bank so that it is capitalized just like the previous banks were from private holders of treasury bonds. And the funding that would come initially from the federal budget to cover a little bit of extra interest earnings for these investors in the bank would be then refunded back by the bank, so that the idea is that it will be, with respect to the federal government, budget neutral, not require any new taxes, and not create any new debt, so that it will be very appealable to both Republicans and Democrats alike. And the big difference with this bank compared to all other proposals is the size. At $4 trillion, the idea is that it would cover all of the nation's infrastructure, including whatever you have in your local areas that you have not been able to get funded, new schools, everything. And in the process of doing that, it will need to hire 25 million workers, train them and pay them Davis-Bacon wages. And that will really help with the unemployment problem that we're having in the United States now on account of the COVID crisis. So that'll help to bring us also out of the recession. So that's kind of the idea in a nutshell. So I'll turn it over to Laura to talk about our support for the bank in the area. Are you unmuted, Laura?
Thank you, Alfecca.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So my name is Laura Quick. I happen to be your neighbor to the north from Lebanon County. And I'm also an elected member to the Democratic State Committee, where we passed a resolution in the June meeting for the National Infrastructure Bank to support, since we have so much support in the Pennsylvania General Assembly. We wanted to increase that support across the party. And I thought, I love that Janet Diaz has taken the initiative, because Lancaster is one of the major cities of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a lead, so we have a leader of a city leader inside a leading state. And I think this is something Lancaster City Council should consider passing as a resolution.
Great, thank you. Do any of the presenters have any final comments?
Yeah, I do. I just want to make it clear, this is completely not partisan, though. We have Republican co-sponsors in the legislature. The meetings in Congress and in the legislatures have been thoroughly bipartisan. There's no party attachment on this, so I don't want you to think you're supporting, candidates or, agendas. This bank was done, believe it or not, by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, John Quincy Adams, Abraham Lincoln, and Franklin Roosevelt. So its history is bipartisan. So there's no partisan implication, just so everybody's clear.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate the presentation. It brought quite a bit of clarity around the resolution and the National Infrastructure Bank. So I learned something new today. Now, this is, I think, a great initiative for nationally and statewide. Can someone speak a little bit to why, my neighbors in Lancaster City should care about this resolution?
Well, really, everybody should care about it. I mean, the big problem we've got in the country is a crisis unlike anything since the 1930s. Nobody knows what the total unemployment is, but the ballpark is 30 to 45 million unemployed. The official figure's around 30, but I mean, you know, there's a immense percentage that do not collect unemployment, are under the table, you know, gig. Nobody knows really what the totals are, but it's massive. And now we're at the edge of a tremendous increase in corporate bankruptcy, which is going to have its own unemployment cascade. Even today, the president had to issue an emergency order to stop evictions because we could have we have 12 million people facing eviction right now. We could have millions of people on the streets. So the reason why we want everybody to support this is that there is no legislation in the Congress that is of this order of magnitude. We need something big. Thinking small is simply putting a Band-Aid, you know, on a hemorrhaging wound. Thinking big is the only way we're going to do this. So this legislation, really, it's in the interest of absolutely everybody. And not only people, you know, in the county and the cities, but also cross states. I mean, you know, we're going to be building water systems and especially rail transportation, et cetera, which is going to cross state lines. And anything short of a national approach is simply, it's doomed to fail. What the 1930s and 40s rebuilding out of the Great Depression proved is that you either do it very big or it ain't going to work. So that's a long answer, but that's a good reason.
And I would add to that. I would add to that the picture of your local economy. Pennsylvania has, as a state, has had a structural budget deficit for some period of time now, and it's essentially because a lot of manufacturing has gone overseas. And you also are faced with very old infrastructure, some of which was built 100 or 150 years ago. So both from a productivity point of view, from an income inequality point of view, from just a straight unemployment point of view, your economy needs a big boost. The faster that you put people back to work in great paying jobs means that the burden on state finances for things like your medical, your emergency services that you just had on your meeting a little bit earlier, on paying for schools, on fixing the water pipes so that children can drink safe water. All of these things will really be substantially aided by this bill, and the finances of the state of Pennsylvania will go a long way to be improved by having higher growth rates and higher incomes earned by your workers in the state who are building this infrastructure.
And this is Laura Quick. What attracts me to this is that jobs, which is always a positive thing. And without adding to the national debt, without raising any additional taxes, and the fact that we've been in the worst economic situation right now as a result of COVID, it will bounce us right out and bring a strong economy, and is something that I think the everyday person can understand, that this is going to help me be able to get a job and have good wages and lead to a prosperous economy.
Thank you all. And my final question before I open it up, is there a focus, I heard some mention of, but is there a focus around green infrastructure?
Yes, the bill calls explicitly for for presenting plans for infrastructure improvements that are climate resilient, so that it'll address flooding problems in your areas, electricity lines that are placed in such a way that they won't be damaged by storms. It'll call for inputs into infrastructure that are green and friendly. for example, you'll use a lot of cement as one example. So the bank will actually provide financing so that you can purchase CO2 sequestering cement for projects, that kind of thing. And it will ask for a CO2 evaluation on every single infrastructure. The biggest emitter right now for CO2 is transportation. And the more backlog you have of transportation in your area, more people sitting in traffic jams, the more CO2 is going up into the atmosphere in an inefficient way. And putting cars, moving cars off of fossil fuels and into electricity won't save the problem, because then it's going to put an onerous burden on the electricity system. So we really have to work at more mass transit systems and make sure that funding is getting into those systems so that we solve the traffic congestion problems.
Great. Thank you. Does anyone from the committee have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to thank the folks that came on to talk us through this. Thank you.
Other members of council?
I have one question, Councilor. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing this information with us. I think infrastructure is something that's been pivotal to our country and something that we've kind of neglected for some time. And we're in a perfect position to really reprioritize that and benefit a lot, even at a cultural level. I recently took a trip to Maine, and just noticing the differences in infrastructure from here or there really showed me kind of some disparities that we have. And I think tackling this at a big level is really what I like most about your project. One of the things that I wanted to see, also considering that this is a bill that's big, again, is there conversations that are being had at your coalition around diversity and equity as it relates to $4 trillion? And kind of what has that conversation looked like?
So there are two things in the bill. The first is we want to make sure that we are investing in the very best infrastructure. And by that, I mean that it should be climate friendly, that it should have the best return to the economy. So we actually call for infrastructure projects to be measured or assessed in terms of their benefit cost analysis. How much does $1 of investment plow back into the economy? We want to do those infrastructure projects first, so that we get the best economic return. That's one thing. But then we also have, we don't see, this is a public bank. So we don't see why we can't use this bank to do things like community development in both inner city areas and rural areas, and make sure that all laws that are on the books to make sure that projects are distributed without discrimination, and a certain share goes to disadvantaged businesses. So we actually adopt something called the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program that's part of the Department of Transportation. We actually call for that explicitly in to make sure that a fair share of these projects go to disadvantaged businesses. And then we want to make sure that we do training to go and target communities that can really benefit from having great paying permanent jobs, building infrastructure, so that we want to train youth in inner city areas, inmates coming out of prisons, so that we end this prison pipeline, providing great paying wages. The people that are most hurt by this pandemic and that have been out of work the fastest and the most vociferously have been the communities of color. So we want to make sure that we target a fair share of this infrastructure building to go to those communities.
Great. Thank you so much for adding even that context to it. I could definitely see that there's dedication and intentionality there. The only thing that I would add, and I guess I would want Councilor Arroyo's support on this, is when speaking to disadvantaged businesses, I think there might be an opportunity there to frame that from a strengths perspective, just to align very much so with the passion and dedication that I see that you have. And I don't know, Councilor Arroyo, what, when we were talking about that specific population of businesses, what would be a more proper term, but I really thank you for your presentation today.
Could I add, let me just add one thing very briefly. The legislation has been endorsed by the National Congress of Black Women, the National Latino Farmers and Ranchers, and the National Association of Minority Contractors, among many others. So we're really deliberately, we actually have one section of the bill, which Alpheka didn't talk about quite as much, which quotes the James Clyburn formulation 10-20-30 to ensure that communities that have been severely depressed are absolutely targeted with a substantial amount of investment so that we end the driving poverty, not only in urban areas, by the way, but in rural areas as well, whether it's urban Black, urban white, or suburban, rural, all backgrounds. And we've done an immense amount also in Native American communities. We have regular conference calls, and we have people from all different, backgrounds on the calls helping to mobilize.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it again.
Thank you, Councilor. Yeah, to your point, to kind of second that, either underrepresented businesses or minority-owned businesses, I think will get the point across. So thank you all for the great presentation. I'll open up to comments or questions from the public. If we have none, I'll go ahead and motion to move this to council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Removed. Mr. President, that concludes the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Mr. Harris, your clerk's report.
Yes, Mr. President. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, just very briefly. As you well know, we've received quite a few public comments regarding the rezonings. Those have come to me and been compiled by me, and those are now, thanks to Amber, posted on the website. That's one of the things I've been dealing with this month. Research, I've research resolutions on behalf of the solicitor and utility agreements on behalf of public works staff. I guess more specifically, I was looking into a 1981 resolution that I was digging up for public works. And I attended the parking authority meeting last week and sent you a summary of that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harris. If there's nothing else burning for any members of council, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, thank you, everybody. See you back here next week. Please enjoy your holiday weekend.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Aye.